Welcome back, friends, to another episode of the Zephcast, the show where we get to know your favorite content creators, streamers, and podcasters alike. I am your host, ZephyrsXP, and with me today, we got leader of the Dandy crew, programmer, and dare I say, the best suspenders on Twitch you've ever seen. Y'all know I'm talking about MrDndy. Thank you so much for being here today, dude. How's your day going?
Oh man, it is another day in paradise, as they would say.
Another day in paradise?
That's fantastic.
Is it pretty hot where you're at?
Oh yes, and you know that brings some summer storms and all that, so yeah, it's been fun.
Oh man, we've been getting like a heat wave here over in like the Pacific Northwest over the past few days, and I'm like living in Washington State, and no joke, it's like 118 degrees Fahrenheit. It's
Ooh.
I'm like so not used to it. I'm like curled up in the house like 2 feet in front of my AC, just like dying. and my room, like my PC gets so damn hot, like my room just felt like it was boiling. So
the lights and the PC and everything, yeah, I'm totally with you.
Yeah, because we were originally going to do this, I believe, like a week ago or so, if I can recall, just like the heat and everything. And then I know a lot of stuff on your end, you were like moving and all of that stuff. How do you like your new place, out of curiosity? It looks really nice.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. It's amazing. You know, it like on one level, you know, it affords me a lot more customization and you know, a lot more flexibility with what I want to do with my setup. And you know, I think one of the biggest things, like I'm an audiophile through and through, and
yeah,
you know, like you know, it's just so well soundproofed. You know, my previous setup was completely hardwood floors. You know, it was very hard to soundproof, echoey, all that stuff. And my family also, you know, they could basically hear me whatever I was doing, even if I was like really trying to whisper and all that.
But ASMR dandy.
That's how the ASMR dandy was born. You know, I had to crank up the volume, crank up the gain, all that stuff, and whisper real quietly into my mic, and you know, somehow it worked. And you know, I was still allowed to stream by the family for the most part, but you know, like having my actual dedicated room to be able to, you know, like fully, you know, use my voice and you know, just not be limited in that sense, you know, like has like a whole lot of ideas, you know, like flowing through. So I'm ecstatic, you know, to finally be settled in for the most part.
Isn't it crazy how much of a difference just something as simple as carpet can make for soundproofing?
It's insane. I was like, you know, like I kind of knew it, but you know, like when you actually experience it, it's like, oh my gosh, like my ears, you know, it's like I love it.
I've always hated carpet. Like every place I've ever moved has always had carpet, and I've always hated it, just because it's like gets so dirty and like vacuuming it and everything. But after doing this and just like hearing everybody say the differences between like hardwood and carpet, and even like hearing like other streamers or other podcasters, it totally does make a difference. That sound absorption is a real thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. You save some money too, because you don't have to buy as much soundproofing, all that stuff. It's, you know, it's a win-win.
By the way, Baby Yoda in the back, absolutely for the win, looking fantastic, my friend.
Oh yes, one would say he is the centerpiece. You know, the main man over there. You know, I got him for Christmas this past year, 2020, and I swear it's like one of the best Christmas gifts I've ever gotten. Like
everybody loves Baby Yoda. Like it's such a good thing to get, right? So
I know.
Jumping in, it is customary on the podcast that we always start out with an icebreaker question. So, MrDndy,
let's go.
Do you think you're ready for it?
Let's do it.
All right. So they're all completely randomized, and the one I got this time was, if you could write a book that was guaranteed to be a bestseller, what would you write about and why?
Oh my goodness. Wow, that is such an excellent question.
Like so many places it could go, right? So many different things it could be.
Yeah, for real. And you know, I would say like particularly for me, it's so hard because I have so many hobbies and so many interests and whatnot. You know, like I guess, you know, it's kind of maybe like a dumb canned answer to some degree, but you know, I think if I could somehow convey just, I guess, my attitude. I have a very like positive, outgoing, you know, like look on life, and you know, really, you know, I'm not really a warrior or anything like that, and you know, I've had family and friends that, you know, I've seen that impact their lives, because, you know, I'm a firm believer of, you know, you get what you give into the world. So, you know, I guess maybe that could be a cool book title right there. You know, it's like, I feel like that would be something I would like to write about, because, you know, like it really applies to everything, whether you're a streamer, you know, musician, gamer, you know, if you're a career person, you know, whatever it is, you know, like the path to success is never just a straight line, right? You know, like you're gonna fail, you know, you're gonna have some zigzags there and whatnot. And, you know, I think, like, you know, I feel so comfortable in that, like emotions and I guess your outlook on life are two of the hardest things to share and convey. So I think, like, if I could, you know, if I just had the words, you know, or if we somehow figured out a way to transfer, you know, just raw emotion through text or something like that, you know,
emojis, maybe
that would be my, yeah, maybe that's the next best thing.
Everyone likes emojis. Emojis are always fun. No, that's actually, I totally agree with a lot of that, honestly. You know, like whether it is in a career aspect or streaming or creativity, I've always been a big believer, like whatever you put into it is what you'll get out of it as well. So you really have to take ownership for a lot of things in your life. And by taking that ownership, by taking responsibility through the good and the bad, I mean, that's the only way upwards. That's the only way to success, you know?
Absolutely.
So first real question right out the gate for you. Who is MrDndy the streamer and the person behind the streamer?
Ooh, I don't know. Let me get them for you. No, I'm just kidding. Well, you know, honestly, they're not two very different people. I don't really put on a persona when I go live. I honestly talk about, you know, things that are going on in my day, things that I've experienced. And, you know, if I have a bad day, you know, I'm going to talk about it. Now, I don't like dwell on it, and I'm not like, oh, woe is me and all that sort of stuff. But I say, hey, this happened. You know, I thought that was kind of funny, sort of deal, like,
right.
And, you know, like, and so, you know, I very much wear my heart on my sleeve, you know, so that definitely comes through on my streams. And, you know, I just love, you know, just chatting with people, hearing about their day, you know, just kind of messing with folks, you know, to some degree. I'm like the eternal jester. You know, sometimes I can take a joke a little too far. But, you know, I think that aspect I'm able to control somewhat in my streams. And, you know, I've made some decisions here and there, you know, just for me, you know, like, for instance, I don't, swear on my streams. I think, you know, pretty much everyone out there does. And that was kind of a conscious decision, not like as a moral high ground necessarily, but, you know, I guess as a one thing to differentiate myself. Like, I really like standing out. To some degree. I don't like going with the flow or the cuff or whatever it is, you know, is popular and all that. And, you know, whether that, I don't know where that puts me exactly, but, you know, I'd like to think that, you know, puts me in kind of a genuine position, at any rate. So yeah, what you see is what you get for the most part, you know, like.
No, that's on it. Like, I've had a couple conversations with people who talk about just like, as the bigger they get, sometimes they start to like resent not streaming itself, but almost this persona they've put on, and like they get tired of that persona. So yeah, going out there, just being as wholesome as you can, being your true honest self, not having to put any mask or anything off, just being 100% you, whatever that entails, it's just going to make it easier in the long run to stream, to make content, to grow, just to be yourself, you know?
Absolutely. And, you know, of course, that's not to say that I don't have you know, moments where I'm like, okay, I could really improve here or there, you know, as we all do. But I think perhaps the moments that I get most upset about are perhaps like when I'm sitting here stuttering, you know, trying to find the words for stuff, or, you know, my tech doesn't work, you know. Yes. like just today, my whole computer just shut down in the middle of the stream for no reason. And then it booted back up and I couldn't use my mouse or my keyboard. And I was like, well,
what?
You know, that's just what happens sometimes.
So I think last week when I had Heather on the podcast, she said, if you're a streamer and you're streaming, if you don't have tech issues, are you really streaming? Because it's so true. Like there's so many components that go into streaming, whether it's like the video stuff, the audio, the game you're playing, the computer to stream it, everything. And there's so many components that can go wrong. And no, you're 100% right. And everybody stutters, everybody struggles when they're streaming. Because I think too, like the more you have that filter on, you know, the more you kind of try to catch whatever's coming out of your mouth. Just be a little bit more thoughtful of it. Sometimes you just got to keep an extra eye on it for, you know.
That's true. And you know, a lot of people say, or I've heard some people say anyway, that, you know, they're poor multitaskers. Well, I mean, the thing is that, right, you know, that's true. But I mean, the thing is that none of us are multitaskers at all is what I think, you know, and, you know, I've read studies about this, and, you know, you split your attentions, and, you know, like that, everything that you're doing is just going to, you know, diminish somewhat. So, you know, but that's what all streaming is. It's multitasking, you know, especially if you've got all sorts of extra stuff going on, not just the game and the chat, but, you know, if you got these fun redeems going on, you know, if something crazy happens, you know, like you gotta manage, you know, your tech or something in chat, you know, it's like, so it's like, it's a very difficult thing to be good at, actually. And, you know, like, so anyway, that's the way I view it. And
I don't believe there's such a thing as a human that's good at multitasking. I just don't believe it. Like, you're so right. There's like so many things that can go wrong. And if you are, that's why I think those channel point redeems where they automate themselves, where like chat can click something and it'll change the light or a sound effect or whatever it is that just automatically happens. Those are like the coolest channel points in my opinion, because then you don't have to keep up with stuff. And I find myself all the time missing like redemptions, channel points, and you don't ever want to be that person that like misses a comment or misses anything, but we're definitely only human, you know. 100%.
That's true. That's true.
So kind of stemming off that a little bit, what originally got you interested in wanting to stream on Twitch, MrDndy?
Well, it's you know, this is kind of a two-parter, because when I first started, I wasn't MrDndy. I was, well, I guess I'll tell you my old Twitch handle, which was, I wanted to be SpaceWalrus.
Was that the whole name? I wanted to be SpaceWalrus, or just SpaceWalrus? Just
SpaceWalrus, dude. But that was taken. That was taken. So I ended up, you know, I talked to my friends. I'm really bad at making usernames and all that stuff. So I switched the A and the U in SpaceWalrus and called myself SpaceWalrus or whatever, like, you know, something weird.
Yeah.
But, you know, I like weird abstract stuff sometimes. Like some of my gamer tags don't make any sense, and I'm kind of wondering what I was thinking when I was younger. But, you know, I digress. You know, so that's what I ended up going with. And, you know, really what kind of inspired me to even get to that point the first time was I was participating in like a lot of gaming conventions. There was the PAX East event that I really liked. There were like competitive tournaments like Street Fighter that were going on that I absolutely loved, and there were a lot of booths and stuff. I remember the first game I ever played in one of those big conventions was actually The Last of Us 1. And they had this insane setup. Like you walk in and they like it was in this giant stadium, so it was all indoors, and they had this booth that was kind of half open, half closed, so that, you know, they had like these arcade cabinet looking things for people to come in and play this little excerpt of the game. And as you're walking through it, they had real props from like that they set up from the game. So like there's like this like overgrown, like you know, nature has taken over this old bathroom, and then there's like this dead body in there prop. Like, I mean, it was so cool. And that is super cool. So like this whole tangent is going to come back to answer your question, I promise. I like to paint pictures, so yeah, so you're going through and you start to get close, and you know, people are talking to you, they're interviewing you, you know, like they're saying like, you know, how long have you been gaming, you know, like what are you, you know, what do you like, all this sort of stuff. And these people were like, you know, people working for Naughty Dog directly, and so that was just a really cool experience, you know. and you know, so they kind of hype you up, and then you get into the game, and so I was watching people play, and you know, trying to come up with strategies and whatnot, you know, talking with people in line, and if you beat the demo that day, then you end up getting this little prop, and of course I ended up getting it.
Oh, nice.
So here it is. It's a little plushy brick.
Oh yeah, that you throw, right? For the sound effect, or like, dude, that, what? Oh my God, that's cool.
Still have it to this day. So
I feel like that'd be a good like stress ball kind of thing, you know?
Oh, totally. Like, you know, especially during, you know, during streams sometimes, you know, just like, you know, hand off camera.
Tech problem's not working. You're like,
exactly. So, so anyway, you know, that was my little tangent there, just to show off my brick, but
I like it.
So, you know, that, like, I had a lot of those experiences throughout the convention, and there were like these announcer type setups in you know, for like some of those Street Fighter tournaments that I was talking about, and there's one streamer in particular that casted and spoke a lot in like Tekken tournaments, avoiding the puddle. And he went from that to streaming in his home. And so I started watching him, and I was like, this looks really fun, and I think that I can do this, you know, like, and so, you know, I kind of started researching it, what you need to do. All I had was this MacBook Pro laptop that I was in college at the time. You know, I didn't have the money, you know, to get a nice desktop or anything, and, you know, do anything crazy. But, you know, I got my MacBook Pro laptop, and then I got like an external Elgato, plugged that thing in, and then the first game I played was on the Wii U, like Bayonetta 2.
Ooh,
and
nice.
And it was so much fun. Like, you know, like I told some of my friends to tune in just to look. I didn't even have a face cam or anything. It was just the game. And like at the time I was kind of like, you know, I kind of just wanted to be the game, you know, like who wants to see my dumb face or anything, you know, like, you know, like we're here about the games or whatever. At least that was my thought back then.
Sure, yeah.
And then, you know, so I was like, man, this is so cool. And, you know, like my friends were chatting with me, and then, you know, I go back and watch the VOD, and it was all like pixelated and stuff, like on the parts where the action was happening. I'm like, what the heck is happening? And, you know, and so that's when I really started to get into the technical aspect of it. And I actually have a technical background. So that like extra kind of fueled my inspiration, you know, to go into it. And, you know, slowly but surely, you know, I kind of strung things together, you know, kind of got like a little bit of a schedule going. But, you know, life got really busy, and I ended up having to, you know, and I wasn't really seeing the numbers that I guess like my younger self was kind of hoping for. And I hadn't quite gotten to the mindset that, you know, that's how it goes. Yeah. You know, like when you start out, you know, you're pretty much streaming to nobody. You know, you just gotta suck it up, you know, just stick with it, you know. And so with that, you know, I'll segue into now, well, I guess technically a year ago, when I decided to return to it. And so with my name, I actually had I participated in some Overwatch tournaments a couple years before you know, I started getting into streaming, and my username in those tournaments was MrDndy, and like I guess it just really stuck. My friends, my coworkers really liked that. You know, they would even call me Dandy, you know, sometimes. And so I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. And of course, when I go to create it in Twitch, it was taken. So I was like, okay, well, I don't want to be MrDndy 1 or 2 or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you know, like I tried to put underscores in it, and so I was like, you know what, let's get rid of the A, you know, or whatever, and let's try that. So here we are. MrDndy, as some folks call me, but
I like it. I think it's really creative, honestly. I think it's when you have those rules in place that kind of force you, not even just usernames, but just anything in life, when there's like bumper guards in place and rules in place, it almost makes us get more creative, you know?
Yeah, I think so. Like, you know, because you want, like, again, you know, as I said before, you know, I wanted something unique. When you start adding numbers to it, you know, then, you know, you're just a number. So, you know, I wanted to make sure that, you know, it didn't have anything like that. And yeah, like, I guess I should back up and say that it was MrDndy kind of came from SpaceDandy, the anime.
Oh, okay, okay, nice.
Just such a goofy, like, you know, it's like he's goofy but stylish, and you know, and so I was like, yeah, you know, that's kind of me a little bit, you know.
Yeah, 100%. No, that I never knew the SpaceWalrus story. I like that. I mean, in another universe, in a multi-universe out there, there is a MrDndy known as SpaceWalrus.
Yeah, and he's kicking A and taking names. You know, there's my PG. You know,
exactly. No, I'm honestly, like, with the swearing stuff, I think sometimes people forget that, you know, however far you want to go with Twitch, whether it's like sponsors or working with companies down the road, sometimes having a little bit more of that PG attitude, not swearing as much, not making very lewd, suggestive jokes and content, like sometimes just having a little bit more of that filter can get you further. But at the same time, sometimes a lot of those people make that lewd, crude content like their brand, and they roll with it hardcore. So I mean, like, yeah, absolutely, I'm kind of the same way. Sometimes I'll have some swear words slip up, but for the most part, I'm not, like, my stream is 18 plus, and I'm like very vocal that it's 18 plus, because sometimes we talk about funny stuff or dark stuff or whatever, but like swearing, I try to keep a filter on it for sure.
Right, 100%. Absolutely. And yeah, look, I have no judgment. You know, it's just a decision that I made for my own channel. It wasn't even necessarily, although you are correct, you know, it wasn't even necessarily thinking about down the road business opportunities or anything like that. It's just, I guess, you know, just how I've been raised, and, you know, just, you know, how I wanted to put myself out there, you know, and I always think, you know, there's another way to use your words, you know, to explain certain things. So I just made that decision just because, not for any, like I said before, any moral high ground or anything, but I have no judgments on anybody else who decides to do that. You know, I mean, heck, I swear sometimes off stream, but you know, it's funny because I've been doing it, not swearing on stream, I guess, like that's, you know, trickled into my, real life. So, you know, I haven't like been, you know, swearing much in real life as well. So, you know, it's kind of, and I think that kind of contributes to my attitude somewhat. Like I feel pretty good, pretty positive for the most part. You know, I'm not like thinking, you know, like I'm not letting the trash in, so to speak.
Sure,
but, you know, again, you know, like, and some people like that's not even a factor for them, but you know, it's just, you know, like kind of a Zen thing for Dandy, so to speak.
No, for sure. 100%. Like I'm, like I said, I'm kind of the same way, just trying to filter it out and yeah, not for any specific reason, I guess, just trying to, I want to say, be more presentable on stream, but like, I don't know. I've seen Twitch partners absolutely crush it saying the F word every other word. So, but like, yeah, 100%. Kind of, going off that as well, I do gotta know deep down in my soul, MrDndy, can you tell us where the suspenders came from? Because they are iconic at this point.
In a single word, Red Dead Redemption 2. Well, not a single word, single game.
Red Dead Redemption, hell yeah. That big of an influence?
Well, honestly, yes. Not just on my, you know, appearance, but also it was the first game that I kind of had this epiphany of what I wanted to do with my stream, because, you know, and I guess to kind of answer the previous, or, you know, the second part of the previous question with this one, when I first started, you know, it was just something that I figured, you know, I'd just kind of get into, and, you know, I had no plan, you know, I wasn't really thinking about, you know, what content I wanted to create. I just wanted to, you know, to be on there, you know, maybe find some like-minded people, you know, play some games that I really liked. And it gave me an avenue during the pandemic, as it has for many of us. And that was kind of my mindset going into it. And so, but as I continued to go through it, I started thinking, okay, like once again, you know, I was feeling that itch, you know, like I gotta set myself apart. You know, like I want to, you know, I guess I'm starting to see, you know, some people come in and enjoy me and my personality. And I was like, I want to make this a fun place. I want to make it a unique place. And so it just so happened that I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2, you know, and I was super enjoying it. And like I read an interview, actually, I think it was on, I can't remember what news site it was on, maybe Polygon or something like that. But it was an interview of the streamer Code Miko. I don't know if you know her, but
Code
but
Miko, yeah, she's a legend on Twitch.
She is. And you know, while I wouldn't say I'm necessarily as entertaining as her, there was an interesting tidbit in that interview that was talking about how she used something that she basically knew really well, integrated it into her stream, and that was the fact that she was she's a very strong programmer, and a lot of the stuff she does on her stream she builds herself. And I was like, well, I do that, you know, how can I kind of maybe, you know, think of something, you know, to do with my own stream, you know? And I was like, I don't want to do like a VTuber thing or whatever, that's just my own personal preference. But you know, is there a way maybe I could do that with my games? And so like I went to researching it, and I was out of town at the time, so I was just on my phone, and you know, like started getting into modding and all this menu stuff, you know, like starting to make notes. I get home and then I just like, yeah, I just basically like was plugged into the computer for days, just like, you know, just coding things up. You know, I was like, I don't even know if this is possible. And then like I remember when I just got my character to automate, like just walking forward, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this. Like just from chat, you know, like I typed something in chat, I was like, move. And then I took my hands off the keyboard, and then the character started moving on the, and I was like,
oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, I've done it. Like, and I was like, there are very few things that I am openly like very proud about. Not because, like, mostly because I don't have like the personality, you know, to like a chauvinist personality or anything like that. It's more like, you know, I feel like a lot of the things that I accomplish, you know, are because I've been, in like very fortunate positions and stuff like that. But like when I figured that out, I was like, I'm really proud of this, you know. Like,
dude, that's super cool. Like, that's super unique.
And so so that was just, you know, like not even just, you know, for streaming, but just for me personally, it just like really, you know, like fueled me with energy. And so you know, long story short, you know, I was able to, you know, initially I just kind of made it where people could do simple actions and stuff like that. But Red Dead Redemption 2 made it possible for me to mod the game. And so like people could like, you know, put an interaction in, you know, whether it's through bits, channel points. I could even do it through chats, but, you know, I kind of left the chat, you know, because I think that would
chaotic.
Go crazy, right?
Yeah, that could go crazy.
And like, you know, you could shrink or enlarge my character or my horse. You know, you could like send a bolt of lightning at me and kill me in the middle of a big fight. You know, you could like Alt F4 my game, you know, like all this crazy stuff. And then, you know, so like that just, you know, like, you know, and like I still do that sort of thing. And, you know, it seems to be working out pretty well. I think like the next step for that, because, you know, it was actually not too, I guess in the grand scope of things, not too difficult to do it for PC games. I had Red Dead Redemption 2 on PC. But then I was like, okay, well, if this is going to be my thing, I'm going to have to do it on console too. How am I going to do that? Like, and
I did have a question kind of like later on, but yes, about Last of Us Part 2 specifically, because I saw your interactions with that. Sorry to cut you off there, but yeah,
no worries.
I think people who really take that, like have chat, have people interact with the stream and be able to control the game and take it out from you, that's got to be like the next big thing. And people that are already doing that, they're already seeing so much success with it, whether it's through bits or channel points or even like follows, initiating something in the game. Sorry to cut you off, but yes, like I'm super excited for more of this story.
No worries at all. And I mean, you know, to your point, there's actually some programs out there that, you know, for less technical people, that allow you to do that sort of thing, at least for PC games. They allow you to, you know, they already integrate with Twitch, you know, with whatever form you want, you know, whether it's through bits, channel points, so on and so forth. And you can tell it to hit like certain virtual keys on your keyboard. But the problem is that there's a lot of overhead, and when I say overhead, I mean like there's like a lot of setup processes, a lot of steps, you know, a lot of clicking and all that sort of stuff. And you know, me, I like as a tech person, I don't like any of that, and it was really buggy too. Sometimes the interactions wouldn't work, and then you know you'd have to do them manually, and you know, or like certain like if you were running in the game and somebody, like I have a silly jump redeem, for example, you know, where somebody just triggers the jump animation or something, and you know, like if you're moving in the game, then it like cancels it out. And you know, so I was like, I don't really like any of this, you know, I don't think this is the solution. So that's why I decided to kind of figure out my own. And you know, there's still those moments. It's not a foolproof, you know, program or anything, you know, anything that's built by humans can and will fail, but you know, I would like to think that it fails a lot less than if I was using that program.
Is one you're talking about specifically Leorin board, out of curiosity?
No, although I do Leorin board, some of the stuff you can almost do some of the stuff that I do using Leorin board. But you know, when it comes to console interactions, there's just no way. So no, that's not the program I was thinking of. I forget the name of it right now, but there's one that it has like a whole interface and everything, and yeah, it basically allows you to specifically put in certain key commands. But Leorin board actually works very similarly, that one is actually very low processing power on your computer. So I guess if I was to recommend anybody anything, you know, if they wanted to do or try to attempt to do something similar, then Leorin board I think would be a good choice. But that one for me also has a lot of overhead. Right.
Yeah, I've been looking at Leorin board because it's essentially, I've been watching a lot of nutty videos on YouTube, and dude's like a genius when it comes to OBS and Twitch and everything.
So true.
And just how he's able to have channel points, like we mentioned earlier, just be able to have chat take over the stream from the streamer and just cause, it can be chaos, but it can be fun chaos at the same time, but just kind of take it outside of his control is really cool. And I think he uses Leorin board a lot. And one cool thing I really like that he did is he would have like a channel point option for doing something, and then he'd have like a similarly priced bit one that's like a more powerful version of it. So like 1,000 channel points and it'll like blow his head up or something, and then like 1,000 bits and it'll like his head will blow up and then it'll explode, and he has like a high-pitched voice, and it kind of goes like extra overboard with it. And I'm like, that's I really see that kind of being the future with Twitch in the next year or so, is people just having those interactions with chat, just be able to almost hijack their stream in a way. It could be chaos, but it could be so much fun at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's kind of where I see things moving for myself as well. Like, I think for the most part, you know, I guess I've been a little hesitant, you know, to offer so much control to, you know, to chat and all that. So I haven't, most of it has been kind of monetary for me. For triggering some of those interactions, but I definitely have been working on something to open it up more and do perhaps something similar, you know, more simple actions that, you know, people who, you know, who just want to, you know, maybe kind of mess around a little bit, you know, have some options, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's one streamer I followed who did, I think it was sound alerts or sound, whatever you pay like bits and stuff, and it's like the purple animation. I think it's sound alerts is what it's called. And he had an air horn fog for free for 0 channel points, 0 bits. Like you just trigger it whenever you wanted. And yeah, I was in a stream for like 5-6 minutes, and I'm like, oh my god, you have to turn this off, dude. This is terrible.
Exactly. And you know, me, I like, I've started to kind of put some, and and I think that's one of the biggest reasons for putting that stuff behind like a bit wall, if you want to call it that.
Right.
Oh, sorry. Is because like, at least for me personally, like I don't want those things to be triggered all the time. I want them to be and feel special, when it does happen. So that's part of the reason why I chose that. And I think if I do anything that is with channel points, like it's definitely not going to be like, oh, you can trigger it all the time, like really easily. It's going to be for people who like want to stick around and really accrue the points and stuff like that. But like it's kind of a yin and yang type thing. You want everybody to have fun, you want to include everybody, but you gotta put some safeguards in to some degree.
100%. Kind of stemming from that, I heard that you'd like work in tech and programming specifically. What kind of, how does one do that? Like, how does one kind of, I'm guessing it's something with your job, right? Like learning the skills and everything, and then kind of translating that into streaming and making chat be able to take over your horse and shoot lightning bolts and stuff at you. But like, what exactly do you code specifically, programming wise?
Well, honestly, like I've done a lot of different stuff over the years, whether it's websites, apps. I've coded in a lot of different programming languages. More recently using Python specifically, and that's actually what I ended up using for my own interactions in the back end. And that's the kind of the handler, that kind of bridges everything together. And so, like, I guess just because I know so much about just programming in general, there's a lot of translatable skills between languages, between projects and stuff like that. And I guess like over the years of me just kind of accruing little bits of knowledge, it's like you can use this here, use that there. And then, it's I guess, it's like, that's why they call it software engineering to some degree. Cause like that, then you're like, oh, well, I can use this here in this case, even though that wasn't necessarily the intended idea behind that tool. So like that's why I love it, and that's why I like want to tear my hair out sometimes, to be honest, because it's just so crazy. Stuff can go wrong all the time. But yeah, like I guess I ended up getting into all that because of gaming. Like I love gaming so much. It's how I met my closest friends, some past relationships and stuff like that, through gaming, and that just inspired me to get into tech. And I actually wanted to be a games developer at one point, but
crunch time.
It was a combination of the degree program and the business, that kind of shied me away from that. So I ended up looking for other avenues of, like just different technical things to do. So yeah, I've heard a lot of, I like working in games, creating games would be like the coolest job in the world, but like you said, the business aspect of it, a lot of the stuff that how they treat their employees, crunch time is unfortunately a real thing. Not in all studios. I've heard some studios are trying to get better, whatever that means. Like they are trying to get better, at crunch time and all of that. And man, it's just such a shame that is a part of these incredible creations, because I've always believed video games are like that frontier between the in-depthness of a book, like all of that texture and detail of a book, and the cinema masterpiece of like a movie. It's like that bridge in between where you can control the pace, you can control the character, you can control so much of it, and it's so beautiful and so amazing. And it's unfortunately, there's shareholders involved, there's managers involved, there's deadlines involved. And I mean, we saw that clear as an example of Cyberpunk that came out recently. And it's just such a shame that had to happen. And so many people are like fixated on how much of a letdown Cyberpunk was, but like I just feel so bad for a lot of the employees who worked on it, who spent years on it, who had this grand master plan of what they wanted it to be and didn't quite live up to it, not even including all the bugs and everything and all the problems and glitches and stuff, but just like the overall philosophy of the game, it didn't quite measure up to where a lot of people were wanting it to go, unfortunately. And that's just kind of the sad reality of working in game development, Yeah, that's true. It's such a big topic, like You know, there's even some things where, you know, when you see the business practices, you're like, you know, should I support this company by buying their game? Right. You know, and you know, it's like, well, you know, when you do it, you know, you think, okay, I'm supporting the end developers, but you know, it's like the unfortunate thing is, you know, just the way you know, business is done, you know, those individual contributors are not making the biggest cut, you know, right. of the, unless they're indies. You know, so it's tough, but you know, to your point, you know, some of them do tend to be like such poignant works of art. And I think they do still deserve a place, you know, in this whole world. You know, you know, Last of Us 2 is an example that comes to mind, for example, and you know, so much controversy, and you know, we don't have to get into that, of course, but you know, it's just, yeah, it's a tough thing. I'm not really sure what the answer is, or you know, I think some people are trying to do good and trying to turn things around based on what I've seen in the news and whatnot. But you know, I guess the best thing we can do is, you know, as streamers and as gamers, is, you know, try to support, you know, as best we can, you know, try to like propagate, like we live in, you know, a time where we can propagate information so quickly. You know, and now also, unfortunately, that means misinformation can be propagated. Yes. You know, but I think that if we take the step to be responsible, and you know, we look at what's right, what's wrong, you know, we see, you know, if somebody comes public with something, and you know, we like share it around and all that sort of stuff. You know, I think that's important. So, you know, all we want to do at the end of the day, of course, is help each other out. So, but yeah, so at any rate, I digress. You know, a lot of drama, yes. You know, kind of deterred me from doing that. But, you know, I still kind of dabbled in it somewhat for personal things. I developed a little VR game, I like oddly for work. I work for a company that has nothing to do with video games at all, but oddly enough, like just for one of our work conventions, someone had acquired some HTC Vives, and like, nice. You know, they were kind of looking for people. They put it on like some, you know, internal job board or something, and I was like, hey, you know, I honestly like at the time I hadn't been at the company for very long, and you know, and it said that there was like a certain time requirement, certain tenure within the company to be able to apply to it. And I was like, hey, look, I don't have this tenure, but you know, if I could just like bring you guys some coffee or something, like, and just like sit in on some meetings, like I'd love to do that. You know, this is like what I want to do. I want to see this. And I ended up being like one of the leads on the project, is the long story short. Like, you know, like I walked in and they just saw my enthusiasm, and you know, so that kind of loops back to our first, you know, icebreaker. You know, it's like you gotta put yourself out there. You gotta, you know, like, you got to seek those things out, even if you think you're not going to be successful. Like, even if you say, like, if you're humble about it. But anyway, I apologize. I'm going on multiple tangents and stuff like that. But
that's the best part about doing all this, is like wherever our conversations take us. Like, I have a whole list of questions. If we only get to 3 of them, that is totally fine. It's wherever our convos and tangents take us.
Absolutely.
Do you think... I feel like a big problem we've had when it comes to like video games is people are so caught in this mindset that $60 and $70 for a video game is too much money. And while that may have been true 20, 30 years ago, when games were not nearly the scope that they are now, I mean, now games like Last of Us Part 2, Red Dead Redemption 2, you know, all God of War 2, these huge mammoth titles that are coming out, like, they're not being made for $10 million. These are hundreds of millions of dollars of projects. And the fact that you can get a video game that costs $200 million to make for $60 at the same price a game 20 years ago, you know, was $60 or whatever, like, do you think video games, and this is going to be such a hot take, and I know so many people are going to disagree with this, but I firmly believe that consumers are spoiled in a sense as to this $60, $70 price tag, when in reality, I mean, you get you can get hundreds of hours of enjoyment from a video game. And some people most people don't even bat an eye going to the movie theater and spending $20 for a ticket that gives them 2 hours of enjoyment, you know?
Yeah, that's true. You know, I would say for everybody, check out a game called Game Dev Story. You basically, you know, you own and you run your own studio, and like it's a really fun, you know, little setup, and you basically like you create a game, and then you sell it, you see how well it does, and depending on how well it does, you can hire more people to your company, you can make bigger games, you can even develop consoles in the game. And like, I mean, it's a really fun, but you know, like, I guess, you know, of course, very surface level to some degree, but you know, you get in it, you know, like that's one of the best ways without actually getting in it, you know, to kind of get in it. And you know, you see, like, you know, like there's people behind this. Now, I think that at least in the US, the distribution, you know, is a little too top heavy. I think that I saw a poster somewhere in like a Subway once that actually showed the wage gap between CEOs and individual contributors, and who was number one at the top of that list for the largest gap. Yeah. Definitely the US. And I think I remember seeing that Japan was on the bottom, but anyway, I digress. It's so, you know, I think it's definitely something to consider, but you know, like there, as you said, there's so many costs in things, you know. I think that's why we're seeing like DLC be so prolific, you know, microtransactions and all that stuff. I think some of them are very predatory. As long as they're not predatory, then, you know, I think that like they're okay. You know, and you know, whether or not you think some of them are overpriced or not, you know, is kind of up to you. Like it kind of comes down to the individual. You know, I think that you know, like the rising prices of games, like, I mean, like there's also inflation, you know, to consider, and you know, like, right, we're just now having this, and there's also game sales all the time. Yeah, you know, like if you wait even just a couple months, you know, you can get something on discount, you know, for already 10-20% if you're really wanting to play a game. So, you know, so that's also something to consider. And you know, and that's kind of coming out of you know, like the cut of, you know, what these companies are making. And I mean, now, like, I don't really know the business deals behind you know, streaming services like you know, Xbox Game Pass, you know, but like it's very much like the whole Netflix thing, you know, where they make deals, and you know, they pay these these companies to have their games on their service, and so that's a whole new avenue. You know, and it's like it's just, you know, like I think that, you know, everybody needs to kind of like take a step back, really understand, you know, the cost of things. And you know, and like there's certain games where I'm like, admittedly, like I'm like, okay, maybe just wait for a sale on this game, but that's my opinion on some of that stuff. That means that this is how I valued the game. But you know, like let's say let's grab Sekiro, for example. You know, you can get Sekiro so cheap now, you know, like, I mean, there's a Steam sale going on right now, right? But I would be like, if you paid full price for that game, like, you got a deal. Yeah. If you get anything less than that, like, you're literally stealing it. You know, like, that's my opinion, because it is so good. And you know, so like, somebody else might think differently. No joke.
No joke. I got Sekiro for Black Friday last year, I think on Best Buy for $9, and it was like 94 cents or something, under $10. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I don't buy this, I'm gonna hate myself. So I have to buy it. Unfortunately,
you stole it.
Unfortunately, it's still sealed in plastic, so I haven't even opened it yet. But eventually I will get to it, and I'm incredibly excited for it.
Oh man, and I know you're gonna stream it, so I'm excited for it too.
Right. I mean, I struggle with, do you ever find this with streaming, like sometimes just chatting and talking to everybody just can take up so much of the time, and then when you actually jump back into the game, it's almost like you're off your groove a little bit, because you're like, I don't really actually want to play a game now. I kind of just want to go back and chat a little bit more. Do you find that happen?
Man. Yeah, honestly, I felt that today. I was, and especially for more difficult games, you know, like I've been playing Returnal recently on stream, And that it's a very tough game, even if like I'm fully focused on it, you know, like I have to have like all, you know, neurons, you know, like just on blast, you know, like just kind of focusing on, you know, dodging every bullet and stuff like that. And then, you know, like when you're having fun talking with chat, you know, I definitely feel like I'm not on my A game sometimes. And, you know, and then when you go back into the game, it's like, man, I don't think I'm this bad. Like I've been gaming for years, but
I feel that so much with Dark Souls. Dark Souls is literally everything you just said. I internalize that in my soul. I'm like, that's me playing Dark Souls. It's so true. But I feel like at the same time, a lot of people, a lot of viewers, a lot of communities, they really get that growth and they get that buy-in and that friendship, and just that community gets built around those just chatting sections. Like that's where you talk to people like so much about how their day's going, what's new in their life, anything they got planned coming up. And you know, I've talked to some people who are way more into the game side of things, and that's totally fine. Like I love that Twitch can be a platform where you can just do chatting if you want, or you can have just gameplay if you want, and like everything in between. And not even just those, you can do music, you could do coding streams, which I heard you're also doing as well. Those are super cool. I did want to ask on coding specifically. I've always wanted to learn coding myself. If somebody did want to learn coding, where would you recommend them to start? Like Skillshare, YouTube, Udemy, those are the ones I usually hear thrown out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess first off, you gotta, you know, I think that if you think of something that you will personally be invested in, whether it's like you want to build, you know, your own website, your own, you know, like a portfolio website, or, you know, you want to build a mobile app or something like that. I think that's a good way, because like tech is so vast, you know, like it's miles wide and miles deep. So, you know, if you can kind of narrow it down to something that you're interested in, then, you know, that gives you, you know, like a gateway to get focus to get into something. Given that, I do think that websites like freecodecamp.com, that offers a lot of great resources. They do a lot of web dev stuff. They're currently expanding out, you know, to do like things like data science and AI, you know, for anything that you might want to do, you know, with that, you know, even if you want to change your career or anything like that, they're a really great resource. I mean, honestly, some people have gone into it and have done nothing else, and they've gotten jobs. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, that's a great resource. There's a lot of other paid, you know, sites. The thing that I think it's Udemy, where like they have a lot of courses. Like the thing is that because there's so many courses, you know, you might think like, okay, well, it's this Java course better than this Java course, you know, like what is this guy teaching that this guy isn't teaching, and so on and so forth. And I think that, you know, like it can work, it can be effective, but it's kind of hard to, like, they don't really have curriculums necessarily. Right. I think there's another one that's kind of leaving me right now. Apologies, but
oh, you good?
Coursera, there it is. Coursera is a decent one. It has curriculums. You know, they like, and I think a lot of these websites have started to realize that. But you know, I would definitely say that you know, if you really want to learn to code, starting off with, you know, some kind of object-oriented language, like Java. For example, Java is a really good one because, you know, it's very unforgiving, and that's a good thing if you're starting out, because, you know, when you move on to languages like Python, it encapsulates a lot of the more difficult concepts for you. And that's great when you know what's going on under the hood, because you can, sorry, my computer's up here.
No, you're
distracted me. You know, since you already know the concepts, if you need to go a level down, you can. So it's really important to learn a lot of those basic concepts,
fundamentals.
But there's a lot of there's a lot of free resources out there. You know, I'd highly recommend folks to you know, take a look at those. I think there's well, here's one way that Udemy could actually be really helpful. Like I said before, if you have a project in mind, if you want to build a mobile app, a website, you can find a specific course that will help you through that, and it'll teach you all the stuff that you need to know: HTML, JavaScript. There's a lot of different backend stuff you can it's crazy. I mean, you can literally use Python to code a website, mobile app, do my game interactions. You can use Java to do those things. Like any programming language can do anything. But really just kind of comes down to what you end up finding is the best tool for your job. You know what I mean? So for example, Python lately has been the best for things like data science. JavaScript is like pretty much only on the web. C++ is something that's still used for systems development and even games development. So these are things to consider, but, not to like inundate with too much information, but I guess to kind of sum it up, Coursera, Free Code Camp, those are some fantastic resources for sure.
I'm so fascinated with like artificial intelligence and AI and everything that encompasses. Like if there was a specific area I would love to go down, it would be AI. I'm like so fascinated, just as terrifying as like absolutely terrifying as it can be if you like really think about it. Just the concept of like training machines and computers and like teaching them and them learning over time and getting better and smarter and faster than like our consciousness and our brains work and everything. Ooh, that could be, I've always wanted to dive down there, so that could be pretty cool.
It's funny because, as somebody who's taken some AI courses, like I think people's notion of what that is and what it means is like, it's so tied to sci-fi versus what we actually have in reality.
Right.
That, like people think that, oh, these, it's going to be like the Terminator or, right, or whatever. But like the thing is AI is actually just like really sophisticated algorithms that tend to respond to input, so it's not something that has consciousness or like I don't know how that's going to come about. I'm sure it will, but and sometimes these things like these AI algorithms get so complicated because they're iterating on themselves that even the developers don't know how it works.
Right.
But that's really just because it's become so large and so complicated within its own just processing and iteration over itself that it would pretty much be impossible for a human to like go in and and try to discern like what's happening under the hood. Right. But at any rate, that's all it is. Like it's just a really fancy algorithm. It's like you're programming like a wind-up toy to navigate through a maze or something like that. Yeah. But that's what it is nowadays. But it's still really powerful. You can use it for like it's not just used in games, like they're using AI for, like a lot of business applications, whether it comes to sorting, data analysis and things like that. So it's one of my favorite examples is if anyone's seen Silicon Valley, there's one guy developed an app where, it basically it took a picture of a hot dog and it said, is it a hot dog or is it not a hot dog?
Yes.
But, he got the algorithm so good that it was recognizing, the hot dogs so well that, it ended up like, I'm not going to tell the rest of the story because
spoiler alert.
It's spoilers and it's, it's not exactly PG, but he ended up, it ended up being like a huge boon to a lot of investors and stuff like that on the show. So that's really what AI is.
It's kind of almost like a really advanced version of it would kind of be like Tesla's autopilot, where it's always scanning like every object and saying like, is this a human? Yes or no? Is a stop sign? Yes or no? Is this a green light, a red light? Yes or no? And I was talking to a software engineer like a year or so ago when I was at my job, and he was kind of explaining it like it's like when you go on YouTube or you just pull up something and the algorithm, this AI is trying to think probability wise, what are you most likely to click on? Or even like on an iPhone, when you pull down and it has like the Siri suggestions, that's the Siri AI algorithm thinking like, what are you most likely going to pick on your phone? Like statistic wise, probability wise, what are you most likely going to pick as an app to use? So yeah, essentially just kind of training it. And I'm super fascinated when it comes to like self-driving and everything like that. And I cannot wait for the day where people do not have to drive their cars, because there are few things worse in the world than driving in traffic with people who are on their phones when they're driving, or like doing their makeup while they're driving, or like eating while they're driving. And I'm like, y'all are going like 70 miles an hour and like drinking your coffee and texting, or man, like no joke, one of my last days at my job when I was driving to work, there was this woman who was smoking a cigarette in one hand, eating a cheeseburger in the other hand, and using her like thigh to drive the car. And I'm just like,
no way.
I gotta get a job working from home. I can't do this anymore. People are terrifying. Do y'all feel that with driving? True. I can't be the only one, goodness. Right?
I agree 100%. You know, like, I think people have said that, you know, like if everybody drove the speed limit, we would all get, you know, we followed the rules and everything, we would all get to where we're going much faster. But because some people have to go fast, cut people off, you know, or slow, like it's chaos. It's complete chaos. So I think once it's all automated, you know, like, and then everything can just kind of cart us around at the speed limit, we will be more efficient with our time and our travel. So yeah, like I'm totally for it.
I totally agree. And I mean, people just think of like the scary aspect of not being able to drive a car, but like if you take a step back, I mean, elevators used to not be automated. There used to be somebody who would sit in the elevator and like press the button and like pull the lever and everything to take you wherever you need to go. And when elevators became automated, people were terrified of them originally. And now you don't even think twice. You just get in and press the button. And just like think of how much self-driving cars could help like elderly people, could help young children getting to school and not having to worry about like parents driving, or you know, if you're sick or you're drunk driving. I mean, drunk driving should be like the #1 reason people want self-driving cars to be a thing. Because yeah, sorry to go off on like a tangent right there, but like I'm super passionate about self-driving cars, and the day cannot come soon enough for it.
It's all good, and I agree.
I'm always asking wifey, I'm like, Elon, where are you at, my man? Why are we still not? Why are people still driving their cars? Anyways, a little bit more on the dandy side of things. One question I do gotta ask: where did the idea of the Picard maneuver come from? Yeah.
Oh man, you've done your research, Zeph. Aside from the obvious, being actually a very big Star Trek fan, for Halloween, right about the time I'd started watching the newest Star Trek show, Star Trek Discovery. And I was like, you know what, you know, I want to do something fun for Halloween. And so I got one of the uniforms from there, from the show. And because I'm honestly, the Next Generation with Patrick Stewart is probably my favorite of all of them.
That was my
it's
next
very
question.
close between that and Deep Space Nine.
Nice.
And so I was like, okay, like I was basically going as a ship captain. And so, you know, in the show, it's kind of a meme sort of, where like there's like a Picard maneuver where he like navigates the ship in battle, you know, and does like this crazy, you know, like do-si-do with the ships, and you know, gets behind enemies and all that stuff. But then people attributed that term to him pulling his shirt down whenever he like goes to sit down, or when he's thinking or something like that. And so like I was like, I want to incorporate that, you know, in my costume. And so like it just kind of stuck around after that, you know, and there's some other people, you know, who are Star Trek fans that pop up and redeem it, and you know, we just have like a blast, you know, laughing about it and talking about it, and you know, like it's just kind of one of those things that stuck around, you know.
I never got like super big into Star Trek. I've seen a couple of the movies and I really like them a lot, but my dad was like he had watched everything that had Star Trek name on it. Like he had watched all of it. And One question in particular when it comes to Star Trek, were you a fan of like the newer movies they just did at all?
Like specifically the ones with Chris Pine?
Yes, because I know I actually enjoyed them quite a bit, but I guess they were quite not well received, shall we say, in the Star Trek community.
Yeah, I think they were okay. Like, I like how they kind of tied in, you know, like some old Star Trek lore, like they had Leonard Nimoy in it, you know, and kind of made it kind of like its own sort of parallel universe instead of, you know, like being in the continuity and whatnot. And, you know, I enjoyed them for what they were, but, you know, it's not something that really stuck, you know, in my head. You know, it wasn't like one of those experiences that honestly the rest of Star Trek is really known for. You know, like I feel like actually very, very good friend of mine from, you know, when I was probably like still in diapers, he actually, his parents had him watch The Next Generation to kind of form his moral compass as he was growing up. And so like when I hadn't watched it, you know, until I'd gotten to college. So, you know, that's when I started to get into it. And, you know, and it's just so amazing how like not only do they answer like these or ask rather these incredible philosophical, you know, moral questions, but they like try to address them, answer them, you know. And so like that's what Star Trek is to me. You know, the tech mumbo jumbo, it's fun, you know, like it's inspiring, and you know, but like, you know, really, you know, it's like that whole like Star Wars Star Trek dichotomy. It's like, you know, well, you watch Star Trek, you know, because of the drama, you watch Star Wars for the action and the graphics and all that sort of stuff. And you know, maybe some people disagree, and you know, that's okay. It's okay to have your wrong opinion. No, I'm just kidding. But you know, for me, that's what Star Trek means to me. And like honestly, like there have been episodes that have brought me to tears because they've just been so moving, poignant, you know, all that stuff. So I enjoyed them, but you know, like they're kind of, it's kind of more like a popcorn thing, you know. Gotcha. Is the way I view it.
Well, not as memorable, right?
Exactly. There's
a lot of really intricate, really interesting science that Star Trek has kind of been known for. Specifically the I think it's the Alcubierre's drive, essentially the warp drive. Like whoever originally like created that concept, there's been some scientists who've kind of put it in the works of like actually that could physically be a thing like in our universe, the idea of creating wormholes like that. Have you read into any of that kind of stuff by any chance?
Yeah, a bit. Like I've read about some physicists saying that, you know, they would basically take like, you know, it could happen, but we would have to get to the point where, you know, we could basically like bend light.
Right.
And so that is really fascinating to me. And I think it's possible. But like, you know, it's just
way in the
you know,
future.
and like then you got to consider like all the, you know, like relativity and stuff like that. You know, like I'm always thinking about that whenever I see space shows and stuff. Like if you leave Earth, you know, even if you're traveling at, you know, whatever times the speed of light,
right,
you know, like it's like you got to think that when you leave, you know, you could be gone for so long, you know, and like everything, you know, you're basically leaving it behind. So I guess like I tend to think about those things, and you know, how if it's even possible for science to balance that, you know. So, but yeah, no, it's like I honestly, I haven't really looked super hard into, you know, that warp stuff, but I will say that if there was one Star Trek technology that I would definitely want to have, it would definitely be the transporters. Ooh. Because I hate flights. I hate flying. I hate being crammed like a sardine in those little, you know,
I'll just teleport there.
Yeah, just teleport there. Although I'm sure that we'll find a way to like make that be like omega expensive, but
or somehow there'll be traffic somehow. God, but that's so true. Like when it comes to relativity, I feel like a lot of humans just can't quite grasp the concept that space and time are not separate entities, but they are in fact one singular entity. And a good movie that did a really good job at showcasing this is Interstellar. Have you seen Interstellar?
Oh, love Interstellar.
When they
even with the weird ending.
Definitely weird ending for sure. But when they go down to the planet that's close, like pretty close to the black hole, because of the gravity of the black hole, it made time on that planet different than what they were used to back at Earth. So an hour for them on the planet was, I think, like 7 hours for, you know, anyone outside of that relativity circle or whatever it was called. But that's so true, because like if even if we took a wormhole right now and warped to another part of the galaxy, if wherever we warp to, if we're closer to like a bigger star or a black hole or anything else, or even somehow in that journey through the wormhole, time could be completely shifted for us, and we could come right back through it, and a million years could have passed and we wouldn't have even known, you know?
Exactly. So, you know, I'm excited for space, you know, all that stuff, you know, maybe colonizing other planets. But, you know, I think it's something that, you know, we'll have to kind of be aware of, I guess, going forward.
Dude, have you heard about all the UFO stuff that's been coming out recently, like the Tic Tacs and all those sightings and stuff that have been seen?
I haven't, but, you know, like, I'm a firm believer that there's no way we're the only sentient life out there, you know. And I think there's some shows, I guess even Star Trek kind of touches on this. Like, if there is a society, or if they find, you know, like a sentient you know, like planet that hasn't developed warp drive yet, then they don't interact with them. You know, it's like a prime directive is what they call it.
Right.
So I feel like, you know, to some degree, you know, I mean, it's possible that maybe there's some kind of advanced technological, like, you know, conglomerate or whatever you want to call it, federation that, you know, maybe is kind of looking at us, you know, maybe they kind of like come in and check to see how we're doing, you know, like maybe even nudge us in the right direction. At least I would hope, you know, because I feel like we're almost like woefully helpless on our own. But well,
it seems like what's so interesting,
but yeah, anyway,
too, with like sightings and stuff like UFOs and a lot of those things, like it seems like more and more those have become really common in the past 100 years. And some people have kind of been, I mean, of course it's hard to say 300 years ago how many UFO sightings there were, because like, I mean, we didn't have the technology quite advanced to be able to know what it was. But I mean, at the same time, could it have been when humans discovered like nuclear power, nuclear weapons, and then if there were some aliens watching us, they're like, uh-oh, these humans on this planet are about to blow everything up. We gotta journey over there and nudge them in the right direction.
Right.
Alien stuff like super fascinates me. We could end up talking for like 10 hours about that stuff.
Oh yeah, me too. And you know, like it's kind of interesting because I've read stuff about how, like, you know, the universe is expanding, and so like we're almost like continually getting more and more isolated in our galaxy because all the galaxies are moving out. So even if there is sentient life in other galaxies, like we may never see that because, you know, like we're getting further and further apart.
Right.
You know?
Right. I mean, at the same time, like a lot of speculation is our galaxy, our Milky Way galaxy, has hundreds of billions of stars, and each one of those stars most likely has planets or some kind of planets around them. And that's just our galaxy. In our cluster, we have, you know, hundreds of billions of other galaxies. So like, just mathematically wise, even if it's a 0.0000001% chance of some kind of life, like there's got to be something, you know, even if it's it's bacterial life on like Europa or on Mars or on Titan, like even in our own backyard in our own solar system, like there's got to be something, you know.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, like if you really want a humbling experience, if you've never watched The Pale Blue Dot,
yes,
watch that.
Yes. Oh my god,
that is incredible.
when the camera turns around and faces to Earth, and we're just that little itty bit, barely even a pixel, like 1 pixel on the screen and you just see the sun, you see Mars, you see Jupiter, Saturn, and we're just a pale blue dot. And the way Carl Sagan talks about it is like, you know, every war, every love, every relationship, every discovery, every thought you ever had, every person you ever loved, every person you ever hated, every emotion that came throughout humanity's entire existence and well beyond before that, is on that one tiny itty bitty little dot there. Very,
it's crazy.
Very humbling. I feel like as I've gotten older, you just kind of start to, it's almost like when I was growing up, I wanted to know everything, and I thought at one point I knew everything. I thought at one point like I got it all figured out, but I feel like the older you get, and hopefully the wiser you get, the more you know, the more you start to realize you really don't know. You know, it's it's this weird conundrum.
So true. The more as you get older, the more you realize that you know not.
You know not. 100%. So you did mention earlier too, kind of just full 180 off the space and talk and Star Trek talk. You did say you were a pretty big audiophile fan. And I did have Suits here on my podcast about 2 weeks ago, and we talked a lot
Great
about
guy.
Suits. Love Suits to pieces, an absolute legend. We talked a lot about music and like the album listening experience versus listening to like a single song experience. Do you have any preference when it comes to listening to a whole album through, or just like the radio hit songs, like one here and there?
You know, I think it depends on the album. Like, I think there are definitely some that it's like this story almost type experience. You need to see the whole thing through. There are some albums where one track bleeds into another.
Yes.
And that, you know, I just love that, you know, and like I think that you know, when it comes to, I don't know, like a rock band or something like that, you know, that's just like trying to put an album out there, you know, like they might have a couple good songs, you know, and some of them are pretty timeless, but they're almost siloed, right?
Sure.
But there's some fantastic experiences, you know, like I'm one of those people that likes to collect full albums instead of piecemealing it and stuff like that. I guess I'm a little bit of a completionist as well. But yeah, no, I tend to like to, and you know, actually growing up, it's funny because my brothers would always like listen to like part of a song and then they'd switch to another song. Ooh. Always, they'd never hear the whole song, and that drove me up the wall.
Yes,
you know,
it's the worst thing you could do.
So I think that just hardened into me, you know, like just having a full experience, and you know, like it's also kind of and you know, like that, this is not to you know, to deter from things like mixtapes and stuff like that. Honestly, those things tend to be thematic anyway. But you know, you get, whether it's a mixtape or you know, or a mixed playlist, I guess is the term nowadays, and you know, versus like a full-on album, you know, like that, there's a full experience there, you know. And I think that like sitting down to hear it all out, you know, is just one of the most cathartic things, you know. I actually, there's a few bands off the top of my head that have that sort of thing. Tool.
Oh yeah.
9 Inch Nails. Honestly, anything by Trent Reznor.
Brilliant. Like, it does everything. Literally, if there's an instrument, can play it and can play it good.
I know, right? And he's probably one of my favorites. And I would say my favorite composer of all time is Yoko Kanno, and she's done the music for Cowboy Bebop, Ghost in the Shell, you know, some of my favorite animes out there. And you know, listening to her, actually there's one album from the Ghost in the Shell soundtrack that is just one song, so you can't really like piecemeal that, you know, like right. So it's you know, and it's so cool. So I don't really remember what the question was, but
like album experience versus like individual song experience.
Yeah, like album experience.
I feel like a lot of people who maybe just turn the radio on and haven't heard a really amazing album, not a song, not a couple songs, but like an album from start to finish, whether it's with headphones on or you're just chilling in the car by yourself driving, like it's absolutely an experience. I would even go and say, I don't know if there's a better album experience in history than like Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. Like, as cliche
so
as
good.
that is, like, it's so true though, because if you listen to it with headphones on, you don't even know when one song ends and the other begins. It's literally just like a 40-minute song that just goes all over, and it is such an experience. And I feel like so many people are losing that, you know, with Spotify and shuffle playlists. And it's just like, there's something so special about, and it could be any music. It could be like some incredible jazz music, or classical music, or like progressive music, or even some like really cool art, like pop music. But just when songs bleed into songs, there's like a thematic theme. There's like a theme throughout the whole thing of it that just goes one song to another. It's an experience. And being like a huge music fan myself, I've always been so drawn to an album experience, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I'm still one of those people that likes to own my music. And you know, I still pay for streaming. You know, I do Apple Music. I know I'm probably like in the minority here, you know, but you know, for various reasons I won't get into, I chose that. And you know, so they're still there, you know, but I guess because you know, it's just like being plugged into the internet all the time. You know, like Bo Burnham's newest special is coming to mind, you know, have a little bit of everything all of the time, you know.
I've had so many people,
so it's very easy to hop around.
I've had so many people in my chat tell me I need to watch that. Inside, right?
Inside. Yeah, it's good. It's, you know, you're good. It's gonna make you think. But yeah, I enjoyed it. You know, at the end of the day, just remember it's a bit of comedy and art, you know.
I haven't seen it yet, but I did add it on my list to watch on Netflix. My wife and I are going through like a huge Tarantino phase right now, so we're like binge watching all the Tarantino movies. But after that, I do want to watch Inside. That people have said some very interesting things about it.
It's worth it.
But like, when it comes to social media and stuff like that, I'm sure so much of it is true, in the sense like we live our lives through social media, through the internet, through, I mean, us obviously through Twitch and, you know, YouTube and stuff. Like, it's so interesting. I know I've thought about it myself, where this room that I'm in, I spend so much time in here. Like, I spend 80% of my day just in this one single room, whether it's streaming or creating stuff or editing or doing whatever. You can just become so, like, we're not isolated because like we're obviously talking and we have people we can talk to on Twitch and stuff, but it is physically isolating in a sense, you know. It's really interesting to think about.
You start to feel very rooted, you know, and like you know, like it's like, I don't know, for me, definitely this past year, like you know, being cooped up, you know, like, and like, I'm one of those people, I'm an introvert, you know, I love staying at home, and, you know, like my hobbies, and, you know, and obviously the whole streaming thing, even my job, you know, have all been at home and all that stuff. And I like that, I do, but, you know, it's like everybody needs to get out, you know, like it's you know, like, that's, I guess, you know, that's almost like your pale blue dot, you know, in like a very, very smaller version, you know, like you get out and you're like, man, you know, there's all this out there, you know. And so like it's so good and healthy, you know, definitely physically, but, you know, like this is a good
middle ground
second to that, for sure, you know, like to be connected and you know, like I've thought a lot about, you know, like how, you know, this whole year has kind of shown what we can do while not even, you know, being in the same space physically. So like that excites me. I don't think that it necessarily diminishes or takes away from, you know, the physical aspect of things. You know, where, you know, people might think like, you know, I guess I'm starting to kind of go into the topic of, you know, going back into the office, or, you know, having the ability to stay at home and all that sort of stuff. You know, it's kind of one of the more specific examples that I can pull up, but you know, like I think that it just changes what it looks like to some degree. You know, whether that means making a more concerted effort, you know, to get out and you know, and just do something else, you know, or like I honestly, I think I could see that being a good thing, because, you know, like where we're kind of more at home, because it makes you, even for somebody who's an introvert, wants to go out, you know, and do these things. Because if you're forced to go out and do things like go to a job you don't like and all that, you know, then you just kind of pull back even more. So, you know, if you're given the latitude to, you know, to expand yourself in your own space, you know, and really kind of take authority over, you know, what, you know, how you live your life and the things that, you know, you want to do, you know, then you end up wanting to seek those things out more, or, you know, like all that stuff. But yeah, it's very, very interesting times. You know, I don't really know what all I said means exactly, but but you know, it's like there's definitely a shift in, you know, like just how you know, just how we're connecting, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like I mean, I even notice the difference between streaming and talking to a lot of my friends in chat, like just reading their chat messages. But then when I get them on the podcast and get to talk to them like this, it's a totally different experience. It's so much
exactly.
like, it's not quite that in-person interaction, but it is it's like such a big step from just one name, you know, writing a sentence or whatever, versus like actually having in-depth conversations, actually being able to communicate in real time, have like deep philosophical you know, conversations, and wherever those tangents may lead to. Like it's not a replacement for in person, but it's probably as close as, you know, we can get right now, and it's very valuable. And I think, you know, I'm very fortunate, I know you're fortunate as well, to have, you know, a significant other that we can share that personal connection with, have that in-person friendship with. But a lot of people, I was reading a study a couple days ago that most, like, the amount of close friendships that people have, at least in the United States, has been declining rapidly over the last 20 years. I think it was like 20% of people only have 1 to 2 close friends, they said. And it used to be, like, years ago, it was like 30 or 40%, or excuse me, it was the opposite. Like 10% people had 1 or 2, and then it went like higher and higher as you went. But it just seems like more and more people, for whatever reason, are becoming more isolated, you know, becoming more introvert. And there's pros and cons with that, you know. That's really what it is. Pros and cons, like we don't get to see each other as much physically out in the world anymore. And
right,
just pros and cons with that. I don't know if it's the right way we should be going about. I don't know if it's the wrong way. I know COVID was like a big push in this specific direction, getting people to isolate and stay safe and everything, but I don't know. I'm definitely longing for that, to see people again, to give people hugs, to like share conversations in real person. And at least for me personally, like having this podcast and being able to do this has been as big of a highlight as streaming on Twitch, to be able to have like, and it's cool because like every week I'm having different conversations with different people with different ideas and different mindsets. And I just feel like,
exactly,
like this is so much where I'm just like soaking in all this information from you and so many others. And I'm just like, oh, I'm a very curious individual. So I'm all for it.
Yeah. And I mean, like, honestly, like that's the benefit of doing this, right? You know, like we wouldn't have met if it wasn't through, you know, because of streaming, you know, because you live on another side of the country, you know, like two time zones away from me,
right?
So so like, you know, we're fine. Yeah. And you know, and I think that's great, you know, like I think it's helpful for people to be able to find you know, like people who are like-minded, like them. Because, you know, there's like IRL communities that, you know, that have people that don't really connect with those communities, or, you know, families and stuff like that, you know, where they don't really feel connected. And, you know, I think like, you know, of course, like there is taking it too far, depending on, you know, on, you know, the context and, you know, and whatnot. I mean, honestly, everything in moderation, right?
Yes.
But you know, I think that the avenues that it opens up are really incredible. I mean, and you know, I mean, heck, like if I found out that there was like the big streamer community, for example, I wouldn't actually do this, but you know, like just to come up with an example, I found out there was, you know, this community that I was really connected to in another state through, you know, the internet, like I'd probably move there, you know? So like it allows
streamer house.
Right. Yeah. So like it allows for that, a gateway, so to speak.
I totally agree. And it's so cool because like without Twitch, maybe we could have met somewhere in the future, but like the odds of it are so low. And I feel like I have this conversation with everybody every time I talk to them on the podcast. It's just like without Twitch, I don't know if we would have ever met, and these conversations would have formed, this friendship would have formed. But like I have friendships in Europe and Africa and South America and Australia. Like I feel like I have friendships on like every single continent, and it's so incredibly cool, of course, to talk about Twitch and streaming and all that cool stuff, but just to be like just tell me what life is like where you're at. Like what is your life like? What's your job like? What are your interests? And just like really getting to know more about people from all over the world is by far one of the best aspects when it comes to Twitch, in my opinion.
Absolutely. You know, I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I think that, you know, as streamers, we would like to be successful and grow and all that sort of stuff. But are you afraid of losing, you know, that kind of personal touch, you know, when you're bigger, when you can like, when you can't really see what's, you know, what's going on with chat, versus when you're smaller and there's only a few people and you can really engage, you know, one-to-one? Is that kind of like something that, you know, kind of makes you, you know, something that you're wary of, or something as you proceed in this career?
I mean, I will say it's very interesting popping into like big streamers channels and just seeing chat flying, and really the only way they can communicate is if they like donate money, and like the TTS goes off where it's like, this person donated $2, hey, you're my favorite streamer, Ninja, Shroud, whoever, Pokimane, insert their name. So like I would never want to get to that point. I feel like for me personally, the two biggest things I love about streaming on Twitch is this, being able to real time talk with people, and then being able to talk to chat as well. Like video games are fun, but I kind of went on a tangent today while I was streaming about how just like I just feel like I'm getting a little burnt out of video games, and I really, the reason I keep streaming all the time is for talking to people, for seeing how my friends like Zach and Fortune and King and all of these like incredible close friends that I've developed over the years, like how their day's going, what they got planned for the next day. You know, every time I get a chance to talk to you and so many others, like that's the reason I hit go live all the time. So if that was taken away, if I wasn't able to interact with chat in that way, I don't know why I would be streaming at that point, if that makes sense. You know, like it's not about the video games for me, because like I like video games, they're great, there's a lot of games I really like, but I'm not like die hard, I'm gonna play video games 12 hours a day type of person at all. I just like talking to people and getting to know more about people, and maybe I could see it in the future where like doing more podcasts with, you know, streamers, like bigger streamers, and maybe kind of focusing more on that. But like I don't know if I'd ever want to get to a place where I couldn't, I don't know, like chat's flying so fast I can't even read a sentence or like see what somebody's meaning to say, and the only way they can communicate with me is through bit donations or whatever like that. Like that's not a place where I personally want to get to. But thankfully with that, I've seen a lot of big Twitch partners who have 200, 300, 400 viewers, and it almost seems like when you get that bigger size, you can like chat's not as flying most of the time as, you know, someone with 10,000 viewers might have. So there's still a lot of the mountain you can climb before that ever becomes a problem.
That's true.
So I don't know. I don't know. What about yourself? Is that something you ponder as well?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think there's certain games, and you know, this is a thought I had earlier for one of the other questions. But you know, there's certain games that are good for streaming, and when I say that, I'm really meaning like, you know, it allows you to, like, there's downtime in the game that allows you to communicate with your audience, and you know, and do all that sort of stuff. Whereas, you know, like there are certain games that are just always plugged in, and, you know, and I'm like, okay, maybe I need to not spend too much time streaming this game. You know, like Doom Eternal, for example, is a perfect example. It's like that game, if you're not like, oh my gosh, like it's so hard, you know, if you're playing like, oh my gosh, like in any of the harder difficulties. But, you know, so like it's, I think that, you know, while you've been saying this, you know, I was thinking about how certain people maybe view Twitch, and, you know, maybe they think like, oh, let me just cast myself playing games, and, you know, and then I'll like, just the act of doing that is why I'm here, and, you know, this will make me successful and all that stuff. And I mean, the thing is like, well, that ship was here at one point, but that's definitely sailed. Yeah, you know, like it has become a production career. You know, it's not a gaming career necessarily. You know, and so like, you know, it is kind of what you make of it, but, you know, like it has to be, you know, like a lot of it now is that engagement, you know, creating, you know, a community, connecting with those people. And, you know, for me personally, like that has been everything for me. And honestly, that's probably one of the reasons why I couldn't really get off the ground, you know, when I was SpaceWalrus or whatever, because, you know, like I honestly, I didn't put the time and the effort in to find those people and connect with them as I have now. And I think that, you know, if I were to get to a point where, you know, like it's like, I mean, it's kind of a cool thought, you know, it's like, okay, like I'm, you know, like like a lot of people, like my stream, and that's a huge honor. But, you know, to lose kind of those, you know, smaller interactions, you know, I mean, like that's just, you know, like that's a tough thing, you know? So, so yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah. And it's something that you don't really have control over to some degree, how big or how small you are. Right. You know, it's like, so, you know, I guess like, it's not like I would stop, I suppose, if, you know, I were to get to that size, but I guess at that point, you know, I guess certain people would probably be locked into your inner circle. Right. Yeah. So, but, you know, I think that's kind of how humans are. You know, it's like we only have a handful or, you know, or two of really, really close friends. And then we have, you know, like acquaintances, like some acquaintances and, you know, and colleagues, all that sort of stuff, you know, the rings go out. So that's just the human condition, I suppose. But yeah, I definitely am on the same page with you on that.
I think it's also really important for a lot of people who are streaming to really reflect on just what even success means to them. Because for some people, like just going live and playing games with their friends, like that's all they want to do. Like they don't care about subs or huge Shroud rating them with 50,000 people. Like that's not a thought on their mind. Like they just want to play Apex Legends and you know, Minecraft and stuff with their friends and just have a good old time. And that is super awesome. And then other people on the flip side of that spectrum just live and breathe and die every single second. It's about numbers. It's about what was my average viewers at, what is this, I want to hit partner, I want to hit partner, I want to hit partner, and like that's all they think about. And yeah, there's just got to be some kind of balance in between, you know. But yeah, I think at the same time, just asking yourself what that success means to you. Last month specifically, I was really struggling with kind of coming to terms with that myself personally. I was kind of getting into the weeds of, after I left my job, I just kind of became like, maybe not quite obsessed, but like almost obsessed with numbers. I found myself after streams going in and like looking at all the bars and the metrics. And then one day I was just like, numbers are down. Like, did I do something wrong? Like what, like what's going on? Like all of a sudden I was streaming to like 45, 50 people. Now I'm streaming to like 25 people. And it just started like mentally draining me and just eating me away. And I ended up taking like a week off of Twitch. And I remember when I came back, I just had the sense of like, I really don't care anymore. Like I don't care about numbers or anything. And I've even just completely stopped looking at my Twitch summary like the past week or so. Just haven't like looked at it at all. And I've been so much happier. Like I'm just going live, and a lot of the streams, I'm not even like playing the games as much per se. Like it's literally just chatting with people the whole time, and I'm just like so much more happy with it, you know, like not focusing on
Absolutely.
partner, not focusing on numbers or anything like that, like not looking at the top of the mountain, just enjoying the journey, climbing it, and like really internalizing that, like really enjoying every day going live. And whether there's 5 people that show up or 50 people or however many, like those people, I'm so excited to see them, I'm so excited to chat with them, I'm so excited to just converse about whatever pops into our head. Like today we did a tier maker for candy, and just, my God, hearing the people's opinions about where I was placing like their favorite candies in like F tier. Oh, I thought my Twitch was going to explode from it. It was hilarious. But like those are the moments to live for, finding that what that success means to you and just going after it full force that way.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Like it is, you know, like you can't, you know, and I would say it's definitely most understandable, you know, for your position, you know, making it your full-time career, like to find yourself in that position, you know, I can absolutely understand, you know, so like, you're, you know, when it comes down to your livelihood and it's tied to it, you know, I'd say that's one of the most justifiable times where, you know, like you start to stress and worry about that sort of thing. But, you know, I'm glad, to hear that you've taken it and, you know, you realize, you know, what's healthy for you. And, you know, cause that's so important, you know, like I see, you know, like some people give up, you know, because they're focusing on the wrong thing. And it's,
yes.
You know, like I've seen some people like they've come to me and said like, hey, what motivates you to stream? You know, like what got you into it? Or like, they're like, hey, can you give me some tips about streaming? And I'm like, okay, well, first give me some specifics, you know, why do you want to do it? And whenever somebody says, you know, I want to do it for the money or, you know, like the views or anything like that, I'm like,
I got a hard
that's
truth
a bad
for you.
reason. Like that's a really bad reason.
Right.
Like, you know, like, just like with anything, I mean, look, I mean, becoming a doctor, you know, because of the money is a really bad idea.
Right.
You know, like at literally anything, you know, even if the money is like, you know, the ceiling is super high essentially for that sort of thing. So like, I think people need to consider that, and consider like, you know, really it's just a question of what you like doing, what kind of lifestyle you want to live. Because I mean, as you said before, you know, like we're inside a lot, you know, our you know, career or, you know, side gig or hobby or whatever keeps us inside. But if you don't like that sort of thing, then you're probably not going to be well suited for that, you know.
Yes.
So like it's, you know, you gotta find your, you know, your niche. Like you gotta eliminate expectations. I came into streaming with 0 expectations. I was like, if I meet 1 or 2 cool people, I'm good, you know. Like,
yes.
And you know, and like I'm honored, you know, to you know, that you're so open, you know, in this conversation, you know, with what you were going through and all that stuff. And I think like that, you know, you inspire me, you know, for sure. Like, you know, when you, cause like it's almost like for me, I'm like, okay, I always want to put my best foot forward, but I don't want to like, you know, I always want to be positive, and I'm always like, people don't really care about, you know, if I'm having a bad day or anything like that, which is actually false. But, you know, I don't want to offload my baggage on people. But, you know, really that turns into, you know, like unhealthy harboring of certain things. And, you know, so like it is, you know, a huge inspiration, you know, to like really, you know, share a lot of that sort of stuff. And, you know, like, and look, it's totally okay, you know, to go into this and be like, hey, I would like to be somebody on Twitch. I would like to be sponsored or make a lot of money or anything like that. It's fine, you know, but you have to be realistic about it, you know, like, and I mean, like, you and I, we're very fortunate. We're like in the top 1% of Twitch. And, you know, like we're somewhere in between, like, I don't know, an average of 20 to 30 or 50 viewers or something like that. And that's the top 1%.
I know.
So, you know, like, you know, you just gotta enjoy what you do, you know?
Twitch is interesting because it's like a pyramid where that very top point, that 1%, if you take another period and flip it upside down where like the big base is up top, like it's reversed, it's like that top 1% of this pyramid gets all the revenue, all the viewers, all it's like totally two pyramids flipped on top of each other with how it works. And it's, I mean, even like being in the top 1%, I would say this would be my recommendation for anybody out there that wants to go full-time with streaming on Twitch and all of that. I would definitely not recommend it until way further down the road. If there's anything like self-reflecting I've learned, being in that top 1%, 20 to 50 average, maybe even like 20 to 100 viewers, like that could be a good side hustle. It could be a good part-time gig. It could be, you know, even take that money and just reinvest it and maybe buy better gear, maybe do like cool sub parties or something, like reinvesting it back into your stream. But I mean, unfortunately most of the money on Twitch goes not to the 1%, but to the 0.01%. You know, it's those people with like 200, 300 plus viewers like every day who are getting 500 subs a month. And I mean, even with subs are interesting because Twitch, of course, I'm sure you all know, take 50% of the cut when it comes to Twitch subs, which is a hot topic. I mean, it should always be a hot topic, but I heard the other day that Facebook is going to start giving their creators for Facebook gaming and Facebook streaming, they're going to give them 100% of their sub revenue. YouTube already gives like 70%. I think it's 70-30. So Twitch is, I mean, even other things like Patreon, OnlyFans, like all of these other sites give so much more of their revenue to their creators, except Twitch. Twitch is like the last one in that boat that's like 50-50. And what's not even commonly known, I don't know if you know this, but it's kind of an unspoken truth in the Twitch community, but once you're a partner, you can negotiate your revenue split. And most partners, when they start out, still get that 50-50, but some of the bigger ones can get like 70-30, similar to YouTube, and some of those really top ones can get closer to that like 80-20. So it's just those smaller streamers, you know, they're kind of the butt end of it, unfortunately, from Twitch. And I mean, I get that, you know, somebody with 20 average viewers isn't making Twitch the same money that, you know, maybe some of these hot tub streamers are making, or Shroud or Ninja, or maybe Shroud and Ninja in a hot tub, you never know. But like, I mean, that's just kind of the sad reality of it. And it's just, it sucks. It really sucks, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I think for me, when I realized like I wouldn't be like that is, you know, when I saw like Ludwig or whatever, and the kind of content that he made, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. You know, like I that's not me. And if that's what it takes to be successful in this, I'm okay. Or like, you know, in that sense, you know, I'm okay with not being successful. You know, like I want to do what I want to do and be successful in my own right. So, you know, it almost feels like
some of the reality TV stars of yesterday have become I don't know if this is fair to say, but like some of those reality TV stars who would have been there in like 2000s are now like some of the top meta Twitch streamers. Oh god, I'm sorry, so but it had to be said. I know another question, totally spinning off 180 from that. I know one thing I did read about you though, MrDndy, is that you do play the alto saxophone. And I did see a clip of you jamming on the alto sax. So did you play saxophone in band in like high school or anything, out of curiosity?
I did actually. I think when I got to 5th grade, my dad actually played the alto sax, and when I got to the 5th grade, that was the first time that you could go into the band, and like I remember the teacher saying like, okay, you get to choose, like you have to choose like 2 or 3 instruments because, you know, just in case you don't like one or if you're not good at it or whatever, you can fall back to one of these others. And I looked at my teacher in the eye and I was like, I want to play the saxophone. I'm not choosing anything else. And she was like, okay, well, here you go. And we had these little like I don't know, these cheapy like instruments that she had. for us to try out. And so I remember blasting out like a really terrible note for the first time on alto sax, like, 5th grader. And I was like, yeah,
this is
for me.
This is it. Yep.
Yeah. So, man, I've been like, I played a lot more in those school days. I think once I moved on to college and there was less of like a band, to be a part of. I didn't practice as much, and I'm definitely way out of practice now, but like certain muscle memory is still there, and I still love it. It's not like a huge like thing that I engage in all the time nowadays. Like there's only so much time nowadays, and I guess like I've unfortunately, that's one of the things that suffered, but I mean, I still love it. I try to, I've been thinking of ways to incorporate it, into stream, even if it's brief. But yeah, I think the one thing that you probably were referring to is when I played the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Giorno's theme.
Yes.
And that was fun. That was really fun to learn and to play.
I was trying to explain it to my wife a few weeks ago, but because like she never did band, or she hasn't played any music instruments or anything like that. I'm like, it's really hard to explain what that feeling is when you're, I mean, it's one thing to be in like a rock band or something where there's like 3 or 4 or 5 people, but when you're in like a symphonic band where you're like one of 30 or 40 or 50 people and you're all in sync, you're all playing the same song, there's melodies over there going, and you're harmonizing with like your other saxophone players. It's so zen and transient, and I did a lot of band when I was in middle school and high school, jazz band, marching band, symphonic band, all of that.
I did jazz band too.
Yeah. Yes, dude, jazz band was the best. It was so much fun.
That was my favorite, easily.
But like, yeah, you're like in the zone, and especially in jazz band, you're like listening to the drummer, and you're like, oh, it's such a zen feeling. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And it's like, music is the universal language, and
Yes.
like it's one thing to be able to like, recognize that and and like be a listener, but to be involved in it and to create it and to play it, I mean, it's like a catharsis that I couldn't really put into words. I remember meeting people and like becoming fast friends who didn't even speak any languages that I spoke.
Just like start playing music.
like one guy played guitar, I'm sitting here playing bass guitar.
Yeah.
And we're just in sync, and that's the best.
That's happened a couple times when I've gone to like Guitar Center, and I'll just be like playing something on the guitar, and then I just hear someone like other side of the store, like on bass guitar, just kind of start following along, and I'm like, I hear you over there. Yeah, you and me. But it's so true. Like it's so. King and I talked a lot about this too when I had him on the show, just like the sense of camaraderie, of just unity when you are in a band, whether it's even just two people jamming, whether it's drums, bass, guitar, whatever, just 2 instruments jamming. It's such an in sync universal feeling that is so incredibly hard to replicate like anywhere else, honestly. And it's so human. Yeah. It's so human, especially if you're like improvising, or like it's always been a big thing for me for improvisation, whether it's on guitar or piano, saxophone, whatever. Like improvisation's always been a huge part of my life, and it just comes out. Like I can't even explain it. Even when I'm like playing guitar, I was playing guitar earlier today and thinking about it, I'm like, I don't even know what I'm gonna play, where these notes are coming from, why I'm going here, or what. Like I don't even know. It literally just happens, and I don't even know how to explain it. Did you do a lot of improvisation when you're in jazz band?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, and I was one of those people that was just so, I don't know, like you could sit me down and put a gun to my head and I would not learn my scales. But like I still could like, I basically sit there, I play really quietly for a minute. I'd be like, okay, this note doesn't work. This note doesn't work. And then I'd make mental notes. And then, once I figured out the pattern or whatever, then I'd be like, all right, now I'm coming out swinging, like.
Yes.
And I love doing stuff like that. I guess more nowadays, like I do still pick up the guitar or the sax, sometimes kind of noodle around just for me personally. And, it's really calming, and, like it's, like it's just a, this great creative outlet, like it's you know, I love it so much. I kind of wish that I had more of it, I suppose, in my life, you know, and that certain things, honestly, that there weren't just 24 hours in the day and we didn't have to sleep. But man, like it's almost a marvel, you know, to think that you can have so many people together to synchronize like that. You know, it's like we can't even do that, you know,
driving.
Like yeah, and like through music, you know, I through this whole conversation I've been thinking about like the Tower of Babylon or whatever, you know, like how, you know, we created a bunch of spoken languages so that, you know, humans couldn't build that tower or whatever, and it's like, well, and if we had musical instruments, you know, you could probably build that tower.
It's so true. It really, really is. Like there's I don't know if there's anything in the world I'm more passionate about than music. Like that's probably the one single thing that I just, if I find out anybody when I have them on the show, or if I find out anybody plays an instrument, absolutely we're going to be talking about that at least for a minute, just because that's an immediate like bond right there that I can get with somebody. Speaking of good things to bond over, also heard you're a big fan of bourbon and whiskey. What's your go-to? What's your go-to?
Well, you know, I tend to move around a little bit, and unfortunately I'm not having one tonight because I'm taking some medicine. But on it, like I love, you know, like I remember my dad saying like, oh, you know, you're either a bourbon or a scotch or a whiskey person, and I was like, no, I like it all, man. And I will say that my favorite recently has been the Japanese whiskeys, whether it's the Hibiki, the Hakushu, the Toki, the Nika company. It's called a coffee whiskey, but it's not it's not. It's spelled Coffey, not, you know, like the regular morning beverage, but yeah, they're just so like, you know, I just love that stuff, and you know, like it's impacted my like I like to, you know, experiment with beers as well, and the beers that I seek out have you know, that kind of like infusion as well. Like I don't know if you ever had Kentucky Bourbon Ale, or Innocent Gun, you know, like some of those are some of my favorites, you know, like it is, you know, and those basically like they're made in bourbon casks, whiskey casks, and all that stuff,
like finished off in them essentially.
Yeah, it's just so, you know, I love
creamy, like that ale taste, or that, like I've had some IPAs that are finished off in bourbon caskets, and oh my god, they're like so good.
Oh yeah, and you get like that smoky woody taste, and I guess like to like, you know, somebody on the periphery who you know, doesn't drink or whatever, you know, like they might, saying those things, you know, may not sound pleasant, but it really is. It's so really pleasant.
Do you get the sense too, like when you were younger, maybe you used to like really like crazy sweet stuff, but just as you've gotten older, the sweet taste has died off and been replaced by this bitter enjoyment, like the bitteriness you like?
I think so. Like I think I still, you know, if it's way too bitter, I'm actually not a huge IPA fan. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. Like, I'm pretty sure I used to shove like a bunch of Jolly Ranchers in my mouth when I was a kid, but like
now that's nauseating to think about, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I'm like, my teeth, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Right.
But, but yeah, no, like I guess like, you know, when, you know, to some degree your palate kind of like expands to get older. So like, you know, there's a lot of nuances to it. You know, I think I remember the first time I had some beers and I thought it was like, you know, literally urine in a cup. But, you know, for whatever reason, I kept, you know, kind of coming back to it and, you know, trying stuff. And I'm not, you know, like I don't drink a heck of a lot. You know, like really just for social occasions, or, you know, like one over the weekend or something like that. You know, but I do love, you know, like just trying new things, experimenting, and you know, like but yeah, like those, if you haven't ever had any of those Japanese whiskeys, like oh my goodness, like it's just
Heaven
it's just cream of the crop for me personally.
Yeah, interesting enough, I used to hate coffee and I used to hate beer like growing up, and then once I started liking espresso, at the exact same time I started liking beer. Like that bitteriness, just something activated, and I was like, yo, this kind of tastes pretty good. But the only beers I ever had growing up were like, I think I had Budweiser one time, and yeah. And then I think
no thanks.
my wife's grandfather he was like, you can have a Bud Light one year when it was Christmas, and I was like, what is this? The whole kind of what you said, urine in a bottle almost. But yeah, like once you jump off of that and go into like I love IPAs with a passion, but even like lagers or stouts, like a good stout, or
that's me through and through. I'm a stout man.
Stouts are so good. Stouts are so wildly different than like IPAs. Like IPAs are just insane bitterness, hoppy craziness, and then stouts are just this like smooth, creamy, caramelly coffee, just goodness. Oh, I love it all.
The perfect winter drink, Samuel and Smith.
Yes.
Oh my! You never had Samuel and Smith?
I have.
What are you doing?
It's so good. It's so good.
More to to those viewing, than
right. They're probably like, geez, what these guys really like alcohol. I will definitely say though, alcohol is. I'm always fascinated by how alcohol is perceived, not only in the United States society, but just worldwide, because it really is such a dangerous and overused drug. I mean, it is a drug, like the way that it's used, and partied with it, and it's celebrated so much. Just like if we were talking about any other drug and just like aggressively consuming it, we would probably be looked down upon by a lot of people. But we can sit here and be like, yeah, I had like a whole 6-pack on Saturday and I felt terrible, but it was so good. And like, there will be some people who kind of groove with that, and nod their head and stuff. And it's scary. It's really interesting. Alcohol is one of those things I'm as fascinated about, just the enjoyment of it, the different kinds of alcohol there are, as well as how societies perceive it. And it's used and honestly sometimes abused in society. It's a weird thing. Oh, yeah. It's a weird thing. So
yeah, it's like a socially acceptable, like form of self-destruction.
It is. And it's so weird too, because like when you think about it, alcohol is literally, not to be a Debbie Downer on anybody that enjoys a good brew or something, but it literally is poison for your body. We are literally poisoning ourselves for this brain numbing effect. It's so fascinating. But like at the same time, it's not even just alcohol that's been such a part of society throughout history. It's humans have always gravitated towards herbs or mushrooms or just anything that gets them out of their head, get them out of that sobriety state. Like humans, there's this underlying thing in humanity of just wanting to escape sobriety for a lot of people. And even some people do it through meditation. Some people do it through like an exercise high where they're just like running nonstop. Humans are interesting. We're interesting creatures.
Very.
So last few questions I got for you, because I know it's pretty late where you're at, my friend, and I know you do got to get up early. So what is one thing that you absolutely love about streaming on Twitch, MrDndy?
Oh man. Well, like honestly, there's so many things. I guess like, the obvious thing, of course, is what we've been talking about a lot, is just the connection. Like when I first got into it, I felt very siloed, right? I wasn't really thinking about, like a larger community and going across streamers and all that sort of stuff. I almost even to some degree, like, thought of it as a competitive type thing.
Yeah.
But, like when I started meeting, like a whole bunch of different amazing streamers, like as well as, like just amazing viewers that, just like kind of like have been supportive in creating the kind of positive community that I've wanted to create. And then finding other communities, it's like finding other galaxies, right?
Yeah.
That are doing that same thing. I mean,
webs
like that. It's just incredible, and, and that's like, I guess, that for sure, is one of the bigger things. I think that, a secondary, I know you only asked for one, but, it's definitely the creative aspect of it. Like you can be, talented in so many different ways, and you know, you can find your niche, you know, whether it's through music, whether it's through programming. I initially going in, I was like, there's no way, like, you know, because like this is a more of like a production thing, you know, like you got to be able to like, you know, dance on your nose or something weird, you know, like do something crazy like that. But you know, like finding out that, you know, I can utilize basically everything that I love, you know, and you know, the streaming kind of centralizes it, you know. It's like you know, your interests, your hobbies, who you are as a person, the people that you want to be around, the people, you know, like the attitude, and you know, the like just the things that you reverberate out, you know. It's like streaming just it gives back to you, you know, the things that, you know, if you basically kind of give it yourself in a way. And I think that's, you know, that's what I, you know, absolutely love about it, you know.
Yeah, we didn't even talk too much about the creative side that you can get from getting an OBS, creating overlays, getting overlays, tweaking them. I know your overlay, I absolutely love it. You have like your production quality, everything is just so, you can almost tell those people who kind of take an extra close eye, and they're going pixel by pixel, lining everything up, making sure everything looks good. And, you know, I'm sure some people, it just like goes right over their head. I super appreciate it. And there's a lot of times I'm watching your stream and I'm just like, man, MrDndy, rocking it with the suspenders and the whole 9 yards. Conversely on that though, what is one thing you do not enjoy about streaming on Twitch?
Man, you know, like honestly, as I've gotten older, the things that I get most upset about are the things that that I think maybe I mess up on or I don't have control over. You know, especially recently, like you know, I built my own PC. You know, I've built, you know, my own interactions and all that stuff. And when that stuff doesn't work, like I really feel it. And I think that kind of comes across in the stream. And I sometimes wish that I could kind of hold it back a little bit. But, you know, as I said earlier, what you see is what you get, you know, yeah. Like I wear my heart on my sleeve. So, you know, so I think that sometimes, and, you know, and like also the way we're talking too, it's just this perfectly understandable stream of consciousness of words. But when I'm streaming, I'm like, what, you know, and then right. I'm like picking and choosing what I read in chat instead of reading it, you know, like top to bottom or something like that. And like really the things that frustrate me the most is exactly that, you know, when I'm messing up or I feel like, but you know, again, you know, like I still take that and as things that, these are things that I can improve on. But you know, when it happens, I'm just like, oh no.
It's almost that subconscious, because yeah, I'm the same. Like if there'll be times I like read somebody's comment and I don't read it out loud, and then I just kind of go to the next one and whatever, for whatever reason I read that one out loud, and I like skip over it, and I don't mean to do it, but it's such a subconscious thing sometimes, and I catch myself a lot like, oh wait, we got to go back to that one and read it. And but yeah, it's sometimes we're our own worst enemy. We're that little voice in our head kind of getting in the way, and it's like, get out of the way, I'm just trying to stream here, I'm just walking here. So last two questions for you, my friend. In your own words, what does streaming mean to you, MrDndy?
Oh man, that's a big question. Everything and nothing. No, I'm just kidding.
True. Very true.
42.
Right. 6 times 7.
I think you know, it just like I have a very active mind, you know. I need to like, yeah, like kind of attach things to it, you know. Like I have like tons of projects going on, you know, like I always try to get involved in stuff, you know, aside from you know, like my regular responsibilities and work and stuff like that. And to me, it's just this you know, it's like you know, almost saying side project / side gig is kind of what it is, but you know, it seems like it doesn't fully capture what it is to me. But you know, like I guess like on the outside. You know, I guess that's what it is, you know, for my day-to-day life. But I mean, it's something that, you know, I just really enjoy. It's you know, I think I'm always kind of, as I said, you know, like I have a ton of projects going on, and I'm always bouncing around because of that, you know, like, and there are projects that remain unfinished sometimes. And so, like, you know, Twitch was kind of one of the first things that I was able to latch onto in my adult life that I wanted to continue to work through and be successful at in my own right. So for me, I guess it's like kind of a form of self-validation, if you will, that, you know, like I'm able to do, or like the things that, you know, I guess maybe part of me didn't think I could do, you know. So like it's pretty powerful, actually. It's been I think it's giving me a lot more than I expected, actually, going into it, you know, aside from, you know, like the larger things. And of course, you know, this is, you know, those personal reasons, but, you know, we could always go back to, you know, the grand community that we've created here.
Yes, all about the community first and foremost, 100%. Last one for you, my friend. Where can all of our viewers and listeners connect with you online, MrDndy?
Absolutely. So I am on Twitter, outside of Twitch. I am MrDndy Official is my handle, without the A, of course, in MrDndy. And I'm not super great at social media. That's something that I'm working on, but that's a place that, you know, I like to kind of put out some thoughts sometimes. But, you know, of course, our Discord is a great place where, you know, there's a lot more conversation going on. And then, of course, you know, I'm live Mondays through Fridays. Guaranteed, I'm an early morning streamer, at least US time. I get up bright and early, and you know, you can saddle up with a cup of coffee or a tea if that's your preference, with me. And I sometimes do Saturdays as well. But yeah, that's pretty much where all I'm at.
Morning streamers for the win, right?
Oh yes.
Everybody, thank you all so much for watching and listening to this week's episode of the Zephcast. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really does help the channel out a lot. And if you want to see more of your favorite content creators, streamers, and podcasters in the near future, don't forget to subscribe. It's absolutely free to do so. And we'll be having even more exciting content coming up soon. Thank you all again so much for watching and listening. ZephyrsXP, MrDndy, and I'll catch you all in the next one, my friends. Much love, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Bye.